and an estimate that my dog's vet gave me. I'm like, wow.
We're in the wrong field, aren't we?
Wow, yes, we are. Vets are like it's like vets are like like insurance. It all depends on who you go to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
It's not standardized like healthcare is for the most part, right? It's like the prices fluctuate so wildly that it's like, wow.
And I'm asking out of ignorance because I don't really know. I don't have any pets, but is there sort of like the same in-network thing going on with vets?
No, not with pets.
Okay.
It's very it's different than it is with human beings, obviously, right? There's no in-network, out-of-network.
Okay.
There are different plans that you could pay for depending on what you want covered.
Yeah.
Typically, younger pets you don't really cover unless it's some sort of catastrophic injury, right? Because
Right.
they're going to basically recover. But you want to get them under insurance at a certain age so that the same requirements aren't as they are with humans. The older you get, the higher the insurance
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So it's worth it to the insurance company, is what you're trying to say.
It is because, thank God my dog has been like incredibly healthy. And I'm really fortunate about that. I've been so fortunate. She's been incredibly healthy.
Yeah,
And
because that bill you just got would have been a normal thing if it wasn't.
yeah, that Bill would have just got, yeah. So it's like, she needs to get her teeth pulled because all her teeth are bad. In small
Okay.
breeds, it's a dominant trait in small breeds. They get bad teeth as they get older. But
Right.
she was a rescue. So because whoever took care of her before didn't take care of her teeth. So
Oh,
when we adopted her 7 years ago, she already was starting to have bad teeth, and we were trying all sorts of concoctions and dental sprays and things like that. It just didn't work. And over the years, it just got bad. But now it's starting to affect her liver. Like it's because she's got gum disease.
oh yeah.
So the question is, the quote came in at like $2,800, and I said, no.
Damn. 2,800. Wait a 2,800?
To pull all her teeth, medications, the
Yeah.
pre-care, aftercare, like it all in, right? I said,
Yeah.
I can't do that. That's just
That's a lot of money.
that's an incredible amount of money.
Yeah.
And I said, and she's 10 years old. So, but I'm like in this quandary, right? I don't want her to suffer either. And I
I
can see
understand.
that. And she's 10, but she could live to like 15, 16, 17 years. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it, man.
So I
I,
said, work on the estimate, get it back to me, see if you could knock off like $1,000. And then maybe I might consider it.
give you only one row of teeth for a dog.
It's like it won't even be very hard. You just gotta they're
Yeah, I know.
falling out already.
Yeah, yeah. I think most of that's probably going to be the anesthesiologist.
Right.
Probably. I don't
The
know. I don't know.
anesthesiologist, right.
But
That's the thing. When you're an older dog, you have to worry about that.
I know the feeling.
So what are we doing?
So hey, we're starting here and now. Obviously, I don't know where we're going with this, but I think maybe the thing to do is to introduce ourselves, right? Because we
Sure.
have to assume that this is going to go to podcast, and at some point, we might be interesting to somebody, some knucklehead somewhere. So, if you want to go ahead, or do you want me to go ahead and introduce myself?
No, hey, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
My name is Dexter Mojica. I'm here with an old good friend, Rafael Quinones. And we've decided to do what I guess everyone else is deciding to do, which is to put our thoughts on the airwaves because we think we obviously have some good um, information and materials and viewpoints that I think somebody wants to hear. So if you want to hear the opinions of a man who is 63 years old and who has been divorced, has two children that are 21 years old, has a really good job, but is approaching retirement, has a a life that's been full of a lot of successes. Um, um, there's been a lot of failures as well, right? That's where those successes rise from. And I consider my background, something to be pretty special along with Ralph's, right? So we both were raised in the South Bronx. We got out of that situation at the time. It's a wonderful place to, how people just bang on the Bronx. It doesn't make any sense. There are wonderful people there too. And, we just wanted to put this together, the both of us, to see where we go with this. Hopefully, we'll be able to, say something that's interesting to all of you out there, and we'll see where this takes us. And I'll hand it off to you, Ralph. Sorry that took so long.
You said it all, bro. So, uh, like Dexter said, my name is Rafael Quinones. I go by Ralph to only my close friends, so don't even think about it out there. Yeah, like you said, we go way back to the South Bronx. We may not sound like it, but yeah, we're two Puerto Ricans from the South Bronx. And yeah, we got out of there when we did. My memories of our relationships, for the most part, are the 70s and the early 80s, because soon thereafter, after I graduated high school, dating myself here, I joined the military, and I was away for 20 years or so, away from New York. And then I came back after I retired. So my experience with Dexter and his brothers, also a good bunch of guys, are basically mid 70s to early 80s, somewhere in there, and and all the insanity that went with that time period in New York City. But uh, I'm a construction inspector, nice at 4 level, which is basically, it's like a pseudo civil engineer. It's the equivalent of a civil engineer. My specialty is with bridges and constructing roads, and that's boring enough. Changing the subject, and so yeah. So Dexter and we came up with this idea of starting this podcast. At the very least, it'll give us time to catch up with each other and talk. And we're recording it. And if by chance everybody can get a laugh out of it or learn something, then so be it. So, so this is like, we did one test, and so this is kind of like we're going hot for the first time. Obviously, we don't know where we're going, so we're just going to just go ahead and have a conversation. Two friends. We have a makeshift list of topics that we're going to try to stay
Oh
on.
no,
Good
there's a
luck with
list
that.
of topics.
And so, hopefully everybody will get a laugh out of this or whatever, or learn. And here we go. So, but yeah, today is the 23rd of November,
Wow.
2024. And,
Wow.
well, I mean, I don't know where you want to start, but I think we already introduced ourselves, gave a little bit of history, and I mean, where can we go from here? I guess we can start on current events, and I don't know exactly where, but any
Where are we
particular
starting, Ralph?
thing you want to discuss?
Where are we starting? Current events.
I don't know, man. We could certainly, last week as test podcast, we briefly discussed this Mike Tyson debacle fight with Jake Paul. Nobody heard us, embarrassing ourselves. So now it's official. We can embarrass ourselves talking about that if you want to. But
I haven't seen the fight. I have not seen the fight, but I have read on various outlets, right, that fight was like carried, right, and that Mike didn't look. Though I would not want to mess around with Mike Tyson in an alley somewhere.
yeah,
That man will destroy me. I will not. I looked at that and I said, wow, this is like, there comes a time where you say to yourself, you know what, I'm too old for this crap, right?
Yeah,
Right. But, obviously the money was enough. They had 60 plus million viewers of that fight.
a lot of folks.
That's a lot of people watching that. And
Yeah.
no matter what you thought of the fight, and how Mike Tyson is not Mike Tyson. Of course, he's not Mike Tyson.
Right,
He's 60 years old.
right.
He's not Mike Tyson anymore, right?
And
Um,
and Jake Paul should be happy with that.
and Jake Paul should be happy with that because if Jake Paul faced a equally, what is he, like 27, 28, something like that, Jake
Something
Paul?
like that.
If he faced a 27-year-old Mike Tyson, I don't know if the results would have been the same.
This would
You
be a
know,
posthumous conversation.
that would be a positive conversation. I don't. I like. I love Mike Tyson. I love what he's um, been able to overcome. Right over the last few years. Um, Over the last few years, his the way that people view him is a lot more positive than they did in his younger days when he was dealing with those rape charges and Robin Givens and that whole nonsense with fighting that guy out in the street. And he
Yeah,
was just, yeah, he went through a lot, right?
yep,
You talk about somebody who went to the pinnacle and lost a lot.
yeah. He
But and
fell
then
a
that
long
whole
way
thing,
down.
and let's not forget about Evander Holyfield, what happened there. Like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
that was just surreal. I don't
yeah. Tyson has definitely had a checkered history and checkered past, and he made a lot of money. We're going to go back to that because I think that's really all that we really have as far as chew into this because, like you said, 60 million viewers, and I mentioned in our test conversation last week that the contract was structured in as much as the earlier this fight would have ended, the less money Mike Tyson would have gotten. So it's easy for people to also jump to the conclusion that Mike carried this guy because the longer the fight went, the more money he got. And there were excerpts, there were videos that I've seen where I thought Tyson could have knocked his block off, but he didn't. Now, the question is, why didn't he? Was it the money, or was it that he just simply wasn't the old Mike Tyson? That's the part I don't know. But I didn't watch the fight either. I won some money, as I mentioned last week, out of it, but whatever, it wasn't a lot. And I don't know. I guess it was a bit of a sad chapter in the Mike Tyson history book. And I hope this never happens to him again, where either he looks this bad intentionally or unintentionally. Because the dude, like you said, back in the day, he was the baddest man on the planet.
he was the baddest man on
And
the planet. You could
and
not.
right now, either I wouldn't want to get in an alley with him. And if I was in an alley with him, you can best bet that the exit would be behind me. Because that's where I'd be headed. I'm
He
sure I can still
actually did.
outrun him.
He actually did. Oh my gosh, what's the name of the Ip Man series? If you ever watch, if you're a martial arts fan,
Yeah.
it's a big series that stars. Is it Danny or Donnie? Donnie Yen, I think
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was.
Yep.
Donnie Yen, right? He's really good in it, but I think in the fourth movie, Mike Tyson is in the fourth movie. Right?
Wow.
I don't even remember the plot, to be honest with you. But
Let
I
me
do
guess.
like.
Let me guess. Mike Tyson was the villain, and Donnie Yen kicked his ass.
It's so true that he had kicked Mike Tyson's ass. But I think during the movie, they built a mutual respect for each other. It was horrible. Like Mike Tyson's voice is dubbed. Um,
They dubbed his. Well, yeah, they would have dubbed his voice.
it's terrible. But it's funny how, like I said, he's done all these little projects, including like the movies, the Vegas movies. What were those called again?
Oh,
Um,
you have the Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh God, I
With
forgot
Bradley
with
Cooper. I can't remember.
yeah, I remember those. I forget the titles of them, but
Very
yeah, I think he made
popular.
an appearance on one of them, right?
Yeah, very popular movies. Which look, audience, we're telling you right now we're old because we can't remember half of what we're supposed to say. But yeah, that kind of like blew my mind, Mike Tyson. You
Yeah.
know, I'll tell you one thing that also blew my mind. It's and I know this is it's this whole Matt Gates thing that happened, over the last few days. Like it showed a level of uh, vulnerability, right? And it also showed a level of, well, you know what? Let's not. There are limits, right, to what we're willing to put out there,
Sure.
right? And that's what they did. They finally realized, and you can't tell me that that man came to the realization that he should resign on his own.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
he was told that. So as this administration, I know we just went from left to right here, but as this administration, starts to form, you could see what's happening here. It's like, wow, this is like a old home week, man. It's like he's putting everyone that's ever helped him or been up front for him or has ever aided him in any way whatsoever. They're just there. He's just
Yep.
putting. He's just filling. He's just returning favors, is what he's doing at this point.
Yep. Yep. I would agree. So, and not least of which, so we're staying on current events now. We're switching to, the election and President Trump being, or not quite president yet, but nonetheless, give it a couple of months. So yeah, he's filling various positions with people that I don't know that are qualified, but there he is. And then there's also this right or wrong. I'm not going to judge it, but there's also this underlying fear that he is going to get back at those that did him wrong. So he's putting a lot of key people in his, I guess, positions, cabinet positions. But I am hearing that, whether it's accurate or not, that he's also has a strategy to get back at, retractors and detractors and those that went against him. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but here we are. We'll see.
Who has at that? If that's what your main look, despite what happened, and Ralph and I again, we're two Puerto Ricanos from the Bronx, right? You would think that we would um, um, look at life a certain way, but at the same time, I don't want him to fail. I want him to do the right thing, but do it within reason, right?
Right.
It's a little scary when you start hearing about um, you know uh, Texas landowners or land officials, uh, telling him that they're going to allow 1,400 acres of land to set up their deportation centers. That just sounds like oddly, just I'm sorry, but it's a little too it's a little too familiar in
Yeah.
our history.
Yeah, it
And
does. It does sound a little bit, at the very least, what's Machiavellian, maybe. And
Orwellian, if you want to
yeah,
say it too.
that's, I am for border control at all costs. I am. We should absolutely limit access to our country through legal means, in my opinion. That's just
Absolutely,
me, right?
absolutely.
But at the same time, yeah, you got to be careful how you approach the subject of rounding people up and putting them in encampments or however we want to put this. However you want to, what I mean. I think it sets a dangerous tone, certainly a controversial tone, and it's a how do you fix this problem? And it's just such a terrible problem that I don't know, the previous administration bungled this as much as you can bungle it, unless it was intentional. Nonetheless, whether it was or not, we're in this position now where we're having to do this. Well, he is. And I don't envy him in this position. I don't. I don't envy him because something has to be done. But boy, that is a hardcore way to go about it.
Yeah, it is.
So,
And every administration, look, this is an issue that's been kicked down. The can has been kicked down the road for administrations historically, right? No one person has done what they were supposed to do,
right,
right? They managed it, but they never controlled it, right?
right.
Not, and now it's out of control.
Oh
And
yeah,
now, and again, rather than finding a way to, I understand if you want to get rid of criminals and if you want to get rid of people that are not productive in this society and are gonna come here to harm someone, that's not someone you want in your country.
right.
But there are many hardworking immigrants, and let's not forget that this country was built on immigration.
Mhm.
A lot of people seem to forget that when it's
Everybody
convenient
here comes from a line of immigrants.
somewhere, right?
Every freaking body.
Yeah, so let's not conveniently forget that,
Yep,
right? And
right.
and when people start saying America first, yeah, yeah, I get that. I'm all about taking care of your country first,
Same
but
here.
let's find solutions. Let's find a way to be able to process paperwork so that these immigrants can be here legally. Let's find a way so that they can have jobs legally, pay into the system legally, so I don't feel like I'm taking an additional burden. Let
Right.
them pay into the system, and maybe the resentment may not be the same. But what's happening, the resentment is built on the fact that they're coming here, we're giving away things, and things that my hard-earned money is paying for in terms of
Yep.
tax. But if they were paying into the system, could I have the same argument? Make that more efficient. But get more border patrol. Make that more efficient. Find a way. Walls, structural walls are not. That doesn't. I don't. What does that do? There's always going to be a way around it, if not through it or over it. There's going to be a way.
Hmm.
So, I think a lot of that depends on the administration and how they do things. What do you think, Ralph?
Well, I'm complete agreement that it has to be controlled one way or another. I myself would not want to have to challenge, deal with that problem, but I agree that something has to be done. Something has to be done because just at the very least, the cost, the taxpayers, and you know what? The issue of taxes is something that's very near and dear to me because that's my blood, sweat, and tears, as is yours. And now I've got a damn alarm going off outside. So it's not just to me. To me, it's not just live and let live. Although it can be looked that way, I look at that as I'm and you and everybody else is paying taxes. We're paying for that, and we're getting, let's face it, nothing out of it. And yeah, I'm not trying to sound like the self-absorbed, shallow butthole here, but there comes a point where somebody's got to get our financial, you know, reins pulled in and get something here under control because we're just throwing billions and billions and billions of dollars in every direction, whether it's at the border or whether it's overseas, a different subject altogether. And what are we as the taxpayers getting out of it? Nothing. And again, that's a tax issue, which is something again very near dear to me. I don't know that this is the moment yet to discuss it yet, or maybe it is in this podcast, but that's part of the reason why I look at the border and other issues the way I do is because it's just a terrible cost financially to America. And something has to be done, whether it's granting these people, these immigrants, asylum and getting them to work and have them pay, or getting them out of here, or getting them off of the welfare system. One way or another, something's got to be done. And not least of which, let's face it, man, uh, various other governments. I'm not talking about just the one going out, but previous ones, all the way back to who knows when. They've used our tax dollars and they've abused it in order to set up some kind of a basis for a recurring vote, whether we want to call this the Great Society, whether we want to call it the welfare system, whatever. That's being used to sort of like nurture a bit of a voting bloc, in my opinion. It's all it is. And so, okay, now we're getting off the subject here, but the point is, yes, all of this to me comes back down to waste, tax waste. And if we can just rein in that waste or half of it, I think this country would be just so much further ahead. But because we're wasting billions and billions and billions, if not trillions of dollars and getting nothing out of it, how can we really progress? I mean, I don't see it right now, but again, more of a civil engineer. I'm not a political pundit, so
Yeah, neither am I. So if they don't have the answers, we certainly don't have the answers, right?
right,
But these are
one
the
or two
conversations,
Latinos.
but these are but to be honest, whether we have the answers or they have the answers or we don't have the answers, these are the conversations that are happening, right?
Yeah,
And this is why if the country voted overwhelmingly. I mean, he didn't. 5 million votes is a pretty significant shift in ideology. The country it didn't like where we were, and it affects everyone differently. And hopefully, you know, look again. I don't want him to not succeed. Do I think that he can um, act more presidential? Do I believe that he has can be petulant, much like an immature child, and can say things that are not correct? Yes, he reminds me of that creepy uncle at dinner that just says whatever is on his mind, right? At the most inappropriate thing at the most inappropriate moment, right? That's who he reminds me of. But I wish him well. I hope he does well. I hope he changes my impression of him.
yeah,
And because I don't want him to do not well, because that's not in my best interest.
right.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. It's this is like, and I've heard this comparison before, and it's like very accurate. This is like wishing your pilot on the plane you're on to do bad because you
Right.
don't like him
Right.
personally.
Right.
Well, guess what? If he doesn't do well, it's going to affect you directly. And
Yes.
so you would want him to take the reins and lead this country in the right direction and upward, hopefully.
Yeah.
And I just hope, personally speaking, again, it's the to me it's controlling spending. To me, that's the most important issue, and I think this election was decided upon two issues. One, and we've already discussed them. One of them was the immigration issue, and now the other one is the economy, and that comes down to managing spending, basically. And I think that is what, and we made mention of this during our test conversation last week, is this country is much more united, in my opinion, than people think. Because, like you said, look how many people voted either for Trump or against Harris. However you want to look at this, look how many people. It's not, and and you said something that I was just thinking about that a second ago, a 5 million vote difference. But actually, think about this, the swing is much more than 5 million because the last election, I think,
He lost by.
yeah, he lost. I don't know the exact
I don't
number,
remember the
but
number either, but he
yeah, and
lost by.
let's just say it was 5 million. I don't know that's the number, but let's
So
just
then the
guess.
swing would be
It's
10
5
million.
million. So it's really a 10 million voter swing.
Right.
That tells me that this country is way more united than we probably thought. And it's okay, maybe it's sort of self-absorbed, maybe it's sort of like a selfish kind of a drive, maybe. You know what I mean? We voted either for him or against her for whatever the reasons were. And again, I think it's those two reasons. I think it's the economy, and I think it was immigration because it comes down to how much it's costing the taxpayers. That's my opinion. That's what I think.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
People don't look at, not everybody looks at the economy as the stock market, right? It's not about the stock market. Not everybody looks at it as, the Fed is lowering interest rates, right? Wow, let me run to my bank and take advantage of that. People are looking at it. It all depends on what you're doing. If I own a 401k, I'm looking at it and saying, okay, our stock's doing well. I'm fortunate in that regard. If I'm looking at it and saying, well, the job market stinks and I don't have a job, the economy's not doing well because, I don't have a job.
right.
And if I do have a job, I have to have three jobs to make ends meet because prices are too high. So in my mind, the economy's not doing well.
There you
It's
go.
it's, it's never just about what one uh, group sees or what they. Fortunately, I do have a 401k,
Yep.
right? I'm very fortunate in that regard. I worked for a company that offered it. I took advantage of it, and I'm glad I did, and more people should. But everyone looks at it very, very differently and how it affects them. And I think that he was able to say, look, yeah, well, Wall Street might be doing well, but you're not.
And
So
that's exactly it right there to me. You and I were very fortunate, especially coming from where we came from, the South Bronx. We did well. I live in North Jersey in a, comfortable home. And I've got no real complaints except for how much I'm paying in taxes. Actually, I'm not even paying it, the taxes. It's being taken from me.
sure.
Eh, Let's change the subject now. Uh, but like you said here, you and I are in a very, very fortunate position economically. Now, yeah, Trump was able to speak to the millions of people that don't have what we have. These people, a lot of people, they're coming from the position of having to live paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah,
and
which most of
and
America does.
yeah, and that paycheck is getting smaller and smaller because inflation is out of control. And that I think that resonates with I don't know how many millions of people, and I think they
10
express
million.
themselves. I think they express themselves clearly on election day. So now we'll see what happens. And during Trump's previous administration, he did well economically, or his people did. Somebody did, right? Because economically speaking, I remember that times were well. The economy was white hot. It was great. Let's see if we can get back to that. You know what I mean? But good Lord have mercy, if only we can get wasteful spending under control. That's like my
Well,
drink right
hopefully,
now.
hopefully that can be accomplished with Elon Musk and Marjorie Taylor Greene and who's Vivek Ramswamy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Is
his
that how
name.
his
I keep
name is
forgetting his
pronounced? Yeah.
name.
Yeah,
But
I don't want to, God forbid,
those
butcher his
three
name.
guys are real smart. Those three people are very, very smart.
Yeah, so well, let's see. Let's see what happens. But let's end this on a great note because we have a lot more to discover in future sessions. But okay, since we're both, well, you're in North Jersey now, but we're both fans of New York baseball.
Yep,
Who is going to get Juan Soto?
that's
Is
a
it is
great
it is it a
question, man.
is it a Met? Are the Mets getting him or are the Yankees getting him? Who's getting Juan Soto?
Oh my God, that's a great question, and one that I've chimed in on many, many groups. I don't really know because here's the way I see it, right? The owner of the Mets, Cohen, I believe is his name. He does have a whole lot more money than the
Ooh,
Steinbrenner
yeah,
family.
he's the richest owner in baseball.
Yeah, he's got more money, and if he really wants Soto, I just don't think that anybody can outbid him. I just don't think so. That said, I think Juan Soto sees those Yankee pinstripes And I don't really think he wants to change them. However, he has made it clear that it really is all about the Benjamins.
Hmm.
He has made that clear. But all things considered, if the Yankees match Cohen, and I think I read somewhere where Cohen said he'll outbid anybody. I think I read somewhere that. But let's just say it's an even bid, 60 million a year or 60 million a year, which is an outrageous number, by the way.
Oh my God.
Then I can see Soto staying as a New York Yankee. I can see that happening. The question is, will Cohen outbid everybody else, which he has the ability to?
You know
And
what? I'll tell you what. I don't want either team to get him. I'll tell you why. I loved what Juan Soto brought to the
yeah,
Yankees this past year.
yeah,
Loved it. He brought an amazing energy. He brought an amazing sense of enthusiasm, right? That just
sure,
wasn't there. I love him as a player, and what he brings in terms of his dynamic. Do I think? But here's the problem: as good as he is, he's a great hitter, but he doesn't run. He doesn't steal bases, and he doesn't. His outfield play is not exceptional.
right.
So, am I willing to? It would I? What can I do with $600 million? Spread that amongst other players and have a more balanced team. I never believed, unless of course you're a once in a lifetime talent like Shohei Ohtani that pitches and hits. Yes, significantly worth $700 million.
I agree.
But a man like that, as much fun as I had watching him play, I just think the Yankees and the Mets would be better off spending that money and balancing their team out. Let LA have
Absolutely.
them.
I've said, yeah, I have said that in many groups also that, I wish everybody well, but at the same time, that kind of a contract can be an albatross
Ooh,
around somebody's throat,
ooh.
bro. You know what I mean? It's just,
Look at the Stanton contract. Look what that's done to the Yankees, right? Even though the man mashes in the playoffs, though, man, he
yeah, he
does.
did, but at the
He
same
does.
time, you know, they wouldn't have gotten to the playoffs if it wasn't for everybody else. It
Exactly.
wasn't because of him. But I agree with what you said about the value of the Soto contract.
Oof, I just don't
If
see
he
it.
wants to stay, look, I myself, I don't know that I'm a Soto fan. I don't hate the guy, obviously. I
Right.
don't despise the guy. I don't dislike him. But looking at the contract value, like you said, look, he's a good hitter. He really is. Look at these numbers, right? 41 home runs, good. 109 RBIs. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's good.
That's good.
288 hitter.
What's his lifetime hitting?
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know it's a whole lot higher than 300, but I don't really know. Now, but here's my point. Have there been other players that hit 300, hit 41 home runs, and 109 RBIs?
Yep.
A whole
A
lot
whole
of
lot of them.
them.
Yes.
And did they get that kind of money? No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'd rather have three or four really good players instead of one superstar and just really handcuff myself, right? I just don't. As a GM, I couldn't see myself doing that.
Right.
I
No,
couldn't do it.
no, that's true. I mean, because again, he's a very good hitter, yeah, but defensively, I don't know. What we saw in the playoffs, I think says a lot about him defensively. I think he's much more of a liability than he is
Hmm.
of an ace out there. But with that kind of money, I would be if I was a GM, I would absolutely try to get the best recruiting team ever created in the history of baseball and find other Juan Sotos. Let's not forget, there was never a Juan Soto
Until
until
there
somebody
was.
found him.
Until there was a Juan Soto, right? Somebody
So
found a Juan Soto.
I really believe in my heart that there's a whole lot more Juan Sotos floating around out there, whether it's in the DR, whether it's in Puerto Rico, whether it's in Venezuela, or
Whether
maybe
it's
even
in the
in Florida.
Midwest,
You know what I mean?
right? You got to find
There
them.
was if we're going to talk about how dynamic of a player he is, okay, let's do that. But let's compare him to other dynamic players. You know what I mean? Here's some other dynamic players that had good numbers in the past. Oh, I don't know. Let's start with Barry Bonds. Dude,
Let's say,
for what for
well,
whatever you want to say about the guy, right? Could crank out home runs, RBIs, could steal bases, was an exceptional outfielder. You know what I mean? There are people
well,
out there. If you want something more recent, Mike Trout. Somebody's calling me routinely over and over. Anyway,
he
Mike
was a
Trout.
yes.
You know what I mean? The dude is, except that he's out in California, nobody really knows this guy. But if he was a Yankee, they'd be calling him the next Mickey Mantle.
Probably.
You know, because the dude is he's an animal, or at least he was.
Yeah, he's just the last couple of years, he's like been hurt, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
that's why he, you're talking about a three-time, right? A three-time, MLB Player of the Year, right? I think
MVP, and I think it might be
MVP.
three.
Yeah,
It might have been 3 years running, as a matter
yeah,
of
three
fact.
years running, and then unfortunately he's been
Yeah.
he's had shortened seasons because he's been hurt. But
But
we'll see what happens. Look,
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see what
yeah,
happens. We'll stay tuned. We could talk about that on the next podcast.
absolutely.
I guess we should end it there, Ralph, so that we can have some more to talk about in the next podcast. But
Sounds good. And you never know. And maybe
we're gonna have to come up with a sign off, Ralph.
That's fine, man. Yeah, who never knows? But maybe by next week, if we're going to do this weekly, maybe we'll know then who Soto has signed with. Maybe this conversation will be over, and we could be discussing the next phase of this conversation. How stupid were they to sign him?
Yeah, I know, right?
Or how smart were they? I don't know. But yeah, I agree that this might be a good time to end it. I was looking at sort of like the time frames that a lot of podcasts go, and a lot of successful ones go 20 to 60 minutes. So I think this is a good time to end it all. So why not? At this point, why don't we just call it a day and have a great week, and we'll stay in touch. All right, but we're going to try to do this once a week. All right, bro. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.